Okay, thanks everybody for your time, for your attention, for your energy. The space is just feeling so beautiful and so, you feel so present. So I want to thank you for that. We're sitting down with the wonderful and incomparable Zoe Modiga, performer, writer, producer, singer extraordinaire. Someone whose music takes us to the heart of what it means to create a modern African sound, and someone who, over 3 bodies of work, has produced a beautiful discography that we can engage in, and something that she calls a long story is unfolding. So thank you, Zoe, and please welcome her with a round of applause. We were just musing on the fact that it's been 6 years since we sat down and did an interview. Starting with Yellow, the novel, was the first time that we sat down and spoke about music.
Yes.
And so much has happened since then. So I think the first question is just in relation to the journey, because each of your albums feel like very intentionally distinct eras. We have Yellow the Novel in 2018, where you're willing yourself into happiness.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have Inganekwane in 2020, which is an exercise in storytelling in your mother tongue.
Yes.
And then finally, we have Nomtandazo, which is a spiritual journey of prayerfulness that is trying to take us into the heart of what it means to really just sit with self and sit with lineage and have faith. And you open and close these eras very intentionally. Like I said, whether it be with a concert or, if you're saying, yapela, the thing is, it's really, really done. And I want you to just talk to me about why you present your work in these chapters, and why that's important to you as a way to gift it to us.
Firstly, hi everyone. Shout out to the queens that came up and spoke. I found so much resonance in the conversations that were being had before. I recognized the language and just the heart of it. So for me, as a recording artist, as a storyteller, it's always been very important to create eras. And it's really just different reasons, right? The first thing is that I grew up watching superstars, right? We saw the shiny jackets and the gowns, beautiful gowns. And I've always aspired to create that reality, in my stories, knowing the heart that these stories come from, and knowing that I ultimately want to celebrate the human experience using the devices and the perspective that I have. But it's always been interesting to have both a visual story and a sonic experience and attach that into one thing, and have these worlds be cohesive, and the language be the same, and for it to be recognizable, for you to be like, oh, when I released Yellow the Novel, she always wore yellow, and it was really hard to find fabric for yellow. There was a point where a good friend of mine who also does my costume and designing now would literally be like, we don't know where to find mustard yellow. I'm running out of yellows to wear between interviews and shows and things. But it was beautiful to be the happy pill and to have that imagery recognizable with the songs that were sung. And with Inganekwane, it was all about traditional regalia. So I was getting into my Zulu bag, I was getting into my African bag, and there was this music that was speaking to people of color, to the black experience, and I wanted these things to be cohesive and immediately recognizable, And with this era, it was really about spirit, and it was also about womanhood as well. Nomtandazo means mother of prayer, and for me it was important to create an out-of-this-world image of a woman as the symbolism. So I've really enjoyed attaching the sonic experience to the symbolism, so that these are one and the same thing and they marry each other. And it's been beautiful to have people receive it in the ways that they have. Yeah.
And I think with what you're saying, we can immediately think of those visuals of either you running on an album cover in a yellow dress, or you at a kraal with the cows, or you just this stunning image that came across our timelines when you released Nomtandazo. I remember just being like, wow, the visual language feels so strong and just feels so married. But you mentioned Neo, you work with long-term collaborators. Running back to 2018, we see the same group, whether it's like Tatenda Chidora on your visuals, or whether we see Neo creating your look. You know, how did you find your team of collaborators, and why is it important for you to carry that forward?
I think for me, it wasn't so much of a mastermind thing. I really believe in being able to utilize what's closest to you. And I think it's a beautiful place to start, because, you know, sometimes we have these big purposes and these big kind of visions of what it is we're supposed to articulate to the world. And it can be very daunting to see these tasks through, whatever they are. So I think an important part for me is who's closest to me? Where's the low-hanging fruit in the form of a person, you know? And in the sense of Uneo Userate being a collaborator, he happens to be my best friend as well. We've known each other since high school, very special school just up the road here, you know, and we were collaborating all the way back then. And he would make costume for me even as I was studying music and having a lot of cool opportunities in Cape Town. And it's just been a relationship that's continued. It feels very safe. It doesn't try too hard. And in the form of Neo, I've been able to meet so many other incredible collaborators like Tatenda Chidora, you know, and we just did a performance recently for Miss SA, and it was literally friends backstage. Honorable mention to Didi and Tabiseng, incredible friends and women, and it just, yeah, for me, it's just, it always is just seeking the safety. Yeah. Because again, the daunting, difficult task of being able to see through these visions of what to share with people. And the thing is, these visions are very fragmented. It's not sometimes one full picture. Like, okay, so this is the image, this is the sound, these are the drums, this is the bass, this is the lyric. You know, it's always fragmented. So it's having to trust things that sometimes might not make sense to the next person. So having these people being long-term collaborators has been special in allowing that. Because it's nice to not have to defend ideas while you are still trying to be the canvas for them. You know, it's nice to just be able to instinctually be like, okay, this is where this is taking me. And for me, that's where my strength is, even though it's freaking scary. So you need people to kind of anchor that and to love on that. Okay, so now I have this vision of just being this out of this world, alien-like. Okay, sure. So where do we take this? You know what I mean? So it's been beautiful to journey and to have the God that has been instilled in them recognize the God that's in me, and for these gods to collaborate with each other has also been powerful for me to also take in and learn from them.
Yeah. And I think we were speaking earlier where I was asking Zoe, what has this Nomtandazo era been like? And you were saying you still feel like you're settling in.
Yeah.
Talk to me a bit more about it.
Oh, guys, you know, when the queens that were speaking before, when I say there's a lot of things that resonated, like I also find that gift is
challenging.
Gift is very, sometimes it feels like the worst thing, even though it gives me the best things. And it's all the things that money can't buy. It's all the things that I don't think there's language for it yet. And with that, going into each era is always like an unknown. It's a lot of brokenness and a lot of wholeness existing in one space. That's what it feels like to me. And when I'm sharing it, I'm having to be presenting a front-facing confidence, right? Because I need to low-key sell you into this world. I'm Zoe Modiga, you know what I mean? I have my gimmick. I know, you know, I need to pull you in. I can't present unsure in pulling you in. But it does not mean that I am not unsure. It does not mean I'm settled. It does not mean I feel firmly on the ground in presenting the works. But it's the knowingness that exists even when I feel unsure that's there. the knowingness that this is a task that I need to see through, and that, that I'm not the mastermind, but I'm a vessel for these things to be channeled and to be said, and that it will resonate with whom it does and it won't with whom it doesn't, you know. Nomthandazo has been beautiful. It's been also honestly challenging to get into the topics in my mind that Nomthandazo comes from. For those of you who don't know, Nomthandazo is our third album. It means Mother of Prayer. And it really has been centered around my grandmother, whose name is Nomthandazo. And that name was given to me by her lover, who's my best friend, my grandfather. And I've been always very inquisitive in going into different areas, because it's never me figuring things out. It's always just curiously seeking things and having to kind of find these memories about womanhood. What is that? It's warmth to me. It's presented itself as the first version of love to me. But I've also felt kind of disregarded in womanhood as well, you know. I've been bullied by really pretty people growing up, like the popular girls. And I don't know what that was about. So it's having to kind of heal these things, but also still elevate this prestige that I think womanhood is, you know. So in that conversation within myself, I'm walking with that, okay, and then wanting to celebrate that and figure it out with the audiences that come to receive it, you know. So, and maybe it's fine to not feel firmly on the ground. Maybe it's fine to feel like it's floating and that I haven't figured it out. Because that's also an ego death, I think, you know. I know that there's things I've worked hard at, and I've had the privilege to be able to be a trained musician. I did not finish my degree, but I did have classical training and jazz training. And there've been a lot of beautiful tools to take in that. But sometimes that can give too much of a sense of knowing. Like you think you're the thing since sliced bread almost. So I enjoy the uncomfortable spaces because it causes all these things to die and drop dead like flies, so that I'm able to just like channel into exactly what I'm supposed to be doing and use the tools, as opposed to feel like I'm this overtly elevated version of myself because of them, you know. So yeah, I'm happy with being unsettled in it.
And I think there's this sense of, you know, you work on something for so long, you work on it for 4 years, that you would feel settled. But when you release, you're releasing it into the world and into people who receive it and who will live with it, which makes it come alive in new different ways that you have to confront. And I think that from our earlier conversation, and maybe just in general, I've been thinking about how much we ask of artists, particularly musicians. And I do too. Just, you know, release the next project. I want to hear the next thing, you know. But what it takes to make is so overwhelming. Be that resources, be that just emotional work and preparedness. And I think that, you know, I'm going to get into a little bit of the business side of it, but you know, when I was reading that Yellow the novel was rejected by some labels, it was so shocking to me, because it feels like that work and your gift is so undeniable. But the business side of being an independent artist, I think is something that, you know, being independent is something that we receive like, oh wow, this person is an independent artist, as if it's something that's altogether wonderful. But being an independent artist means running a business. Running a business in very much, maybe more regulated in some ways space, but adding the challenge of being both the creative and the CEO. How do you handle that? How do you manage it?
Ooh, that is a very interesting question. Have I figured it out? Do I know how I've handled it? Do I know how I'm navigating it?
It's giving very, is it me? Am I the drama?
You know, I'm just trying to keep it demure.
Mindful.
And mindful.
Considerate.
Cutesy.
Very mindful.
You know, You know, that question is like the first heartbreak that I ever faced with music. Because music to me was reading through CD booklets growing up, and I'd spend hours and hours from Paul McCartney to Nina Simone to like Mbongeni Ngema, anything that was in my mom's collection. That was music to me. It was an obsession, a very early obsession. I loved the way it made me feel. I loved the way it made people around me feel. I loved the memories I attached to these songs. And for me, I just wanted people to feel the way these artists have made me feel. And the business aspect of it was a completely different hat that was very challenging for me to get into, because it requires something entirely different. You know, it requires me to see myself as a product. I'm a product? Whoa, like crazy, you know? And there's regulated practices that are involved in that. There's also an overwhelming inner confidence that I'm having to move in the world around, even though I'm navigating, telling these stories, because being a product, so to speak, requires me to create relationships with people. It's the thing that has brought me here to speak with all of you and to share. It's the thing that needs to communicate very consistently who I am, even though I sometimes don't even know what that person is or who that person is. So it's been very interesting. But at the same time, there's so much beauty in being able to be given these visions to share and know that I have control is not the word. There's another better English word.
Authorship?
Authorship's cute. Like, it's beautiful to know that I have authorship over that, you know. Because with Yellow the Novel, which is our first album, for those of you who may not know, I remember just the knowingness of recording that album when I was in Cape Town and asking these musicians that I was so frightened. I respected them so much. Like, yo, guys, how am I going to ask Carl Shepherd? Oh my gosh, like Rumi Brautiseth, you know? But there was a knowingness in putting myself in that space to ask that of them, and them somehow seeing the vision and making that come to life, and then getting a very clear vision of wearing yellow to that and presenting it to a label, and them saying, but I think to them I was supposed to be like an R&B girly, which I am.
Low-key.
Which I am. But like it was beautiful to just take lordship over the vision and to be able to see it through from those that give it to me, and being able to honor that, because it's so important to me that that happens. It is a very unsettling feeling to sell myself short in the vision that is given. So in seeing it through, it was important to have that control over business and to find people who are like-minded, which I've had the pleasure to find in the form of partnership, in the form of musicians, in the form of fellow artists, image makers, to be able to see it through, you know. So it's challenging, but it's beautiful. It's weird. I don't understand it sometimes, but I'm here, figuring it out, winging it.
I mean, I think we all are in many ways, just winging it. And you said something that was so astonishing for me in how important it felt. But you'd said it's almost as if you're a person of real talent with real gift, you have to outsmart the game. Otherwise, you can drown in that love that you have for the work. And I think that, you know, the sense of the gaminess of it, maybe it ranges across industries, but I remember the first time I saw a recording contract, and it's not like, oh, I'm going to own this thing in South Africa. It's like South Africa, Africa, the world, the universe. Literally, that's the languaging, so that if there's music on Mars, I can own it too, you know? And I think that sense of outsmarting the game then becomes important, because you're like, okay, if you own royalties, does that mean you have some of my masters? If you own this, does it mean that? And that's where I think the business side of something creative becomes so challenging, because you're trying to consistently maintain your ownership of the work while you're trying to make something, which is this creative enterprise, you know. Maybe, you know, being independent, now you book the studio, and it's 5,000 rand to be in the studio.
Let's go.
But you need to be there and be singing and be enjoying creativity and not be thinking, if we don't finish, tomorrow is 5,000 rand. And I think that's the sense of challenge that I'm speaking to, with this sense of, it's nice to own the work and the author, the project, but at the same time, you're maintaining being a creative.
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely. I am so uncompromising about the idea of ownership and IP, because I mean, it's my likeness, you know. And again, it's not just, I always say this, I'm genuinely not the mastermind, but there's people that I come from, whose nose I have, whose eyes I have, whose visions I'm getting to live out, because maybe they weren't able to be presented the same opportunities that I was. So what I'm guarding is more than Palisa nomthandazo phumelele Modiga. Like, it's unomthandazo ugogo that I knew was an incredible artist, but she was also a teacher and she was amazing. Maybe there's parts of her that I'm seeing through. It's like the person before that and before that and before that. You know, so I'm protective of IP, because for me, it's more than business. It's my business. Literally. It's like my life business. It's my life contract, you know.
It's your lineage.
It's my lineage. It's my lineage. It's my lineage. You know, it's my lineage. Like, just think about that, guys.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like gowns, beautiful gowns, pictures, events. Yeah, guys, stay tuned. We'll be like, it's my lineage. It's the thing that, like, I have to answer to when nothing else is there. Even the people who are co-creators in my vision, when they are not there, like, I'm responsible to them as well, and the gods that they walk with. But, like, I'm responsible to my lineage as well. Like, that's humongous, you know? But on the topic of, like, 5,000s and whatnot, it's a very interesting thing. I've found, and maybe this is not realistic. I'm okay with this not being realistic. But I've come to a place where I have to forget the amounts. I have to kind of throw them away. Yes, I'm planning, for example, to release an album. You need a PR team to kind of communicate that. Go to very many interviews and wear very many beautiful gowns. Go to events, manage the people that you're bringing into studio, have a lovely jovial energy with them, so that you're also honoring the people that they walk with and the God that they walk with. You know, there's a lot of things at play there, okay? Then after that, oh my word, I feel like I'm always visited by yes? It's like a green grasshopper. Always. Anyway, sabong. So, like, having to, like, balance all these things, and then, like, financially, people need to be compensated, not for their gifting, because you can never compensate them for that, but just to respect their time and the energy that they've put forward, and them bringing themselves to your vision and creating a collective vision with them, you know? So for me, what works is like, okay, I'm saving this amount to make all of these things happen, but at some point, the amount has to fall away. Otherwise, it creates almost like a poverty mentality in me, and I can't function from that space, because there's a lot of abundance in the messages that are being received, and I know there will be return on investment when we have the shows, when we put together the concept, and hopefully if it's something that is well articulated, it's able to translate and then return, you know, and create more of itself, which is what we hope. It's not as figured out as I'm saying it, again, but yeah, it's very interesting. Very interesting.
I take joy in knowing that Zoe is as chronically online as I am. Just the great gowns, beautiful gowns of it all. But I think that, you know, what you're saying around the work of it, I'm struck by the way you always say our. You don't say when I released my album. You're like when I released our album, which has such a deep sense of community embedded in it, because you're working with people and creating something that goes under the name Zoe Modiga, but is everybody's who's touched it, you know, who's brought their gifting to it. It just strikes me as something really important.
Yeah.
As a way to think about it. And to think about lineage that you bring with you as you're making, as part of the hour.
It is important because it's genuinely not just me. Like, I mean, yes, Zoe Modiga, yebo. And we write these songs and we share these things. But I mean, I wish you guys could even hear how some of these songs sound like before people start having their hands and their genius in them.
Yeah.
Like, they're beautiful. Shame, they're beautiful songs, but it's not the final destination. You know, my work is a collective work. My work is a communal work. My work requires people, it requires spirit, it requires all of us. It requires a society. And that is from all the way in my personal space in trying to figure out how to exist as a Homo sapien, all the way to being a creative being and being able to share that. I genuinely do need people to create the sound that I create and the image that I create and the storyline that I share with people, you know. So I think it would be very disingenuous to be like, oh yeah, so welcome to my TED Talk, you know, I did this, you know. Yeah, so, yeah, it's people. And it goes even further than that. The actual songs are about the human experience, and that's not a singular thing either. You know, that's me observing the life around me, the people I love, perfect strangers who are impactful to me. But it's also lived experiences, and I'm not in a cell. I'm not in an island. I'm reacting to what I'm receiving. Even in this space, you and I might be the only people talking, but like I'm actually feeling the energy of the room. Even as the ladies were talking earlier, we were all talking. Although we were like, like it's an us. We are using. Life is about an using, you know, so yeah, we have to acknowledge that.
Yeah, I think it's really important. And, you know, I want to take us, you know, to the sound. I think you are repeatedly pushing up against this description where people are describing you as a jazz artist, which is, you know, you've said is the biggest misconception about you. And in that realm of authorship have been very clear about articulating what your sound is doing when you're saying, I'm creating a modern, contemporary African sound. Tell us what that is and what that means to you.
My first history of music is not in school. Or let me say it was a different school. It was at home, Mbali, Ewan, Pietermaritzburg. If you can think of your favorite township, I was raised in one of those. Grandfather, grandmother, Tarvin, a lot of moving bodies. Family wasn't just in the household, it was outside the household. That granny over there was my granny. That cousin over there was my cousin. When my grandmother had to go and get pension, guess where I was sleeping over? Next door, right? So, in thinking about like, in thinking about these spaces and then going to have these privileges and opportunities to be in junior choirs, to be exposed to classical music, to be exposed to the jazz music, it's important for me that I continue to reiterate that music is not just one thing. And I'm not just one thing. And I don't feel seen if I'm called just by one thing. I know as an artist, because of the space I operate in, that I'm in live music, I'm in the African scene and space, and that for many people, I'm the gateway into the jazz community. And I love the jazz community. I have many stories I'm never gonna share that are so awesome about it, that are beautiful, that make me smile. But like music is such an allness. It's like such an allness to me. Like Trompis is just as important as Mamire Makeba, as Nina Simone, as TKZ, as like Michael Bolton, as like, where do you heal a broken heart that feels... I don't actually sing like this. But like, There's such an allness to it. So for me, I don't like the limitation because I don't relate to music like that.
Yeah.
I'm not a purist. The only thing I'm a purist about is honest expression and being able to tell stories about the human experience from my perspective, stories that challenge us, stories that evoke emotion, stories that celebrate us, that twerk with us, that cry with us, that send us through, that heal us through. But yeah, there's an allness to music for me.
I've always been astonished by the way you treat, the voice is an instrument, but the way that you treat it reminds us that it is an instrument, that you sing like a clarinet, that you're exploring different sounds, different textures. And I can imagine on this journey with your voice, that being a performing artist now, there's a different relationship that you have with your voice, or the relationship has deepened in different ways. How do you relate to your voice now?
Very deep. Someone said deep, very deep. It's not inside, it's on top.
It's not inside, it's on top.
Yeah. How do I relate to my voice now? I appreciate that there's things that I've learned about my voice over time, and that there's tools that I've taken in, and that there's people I study, that I'm going to be a learner till the day I die, and that this has helped even in times where, for example, I was sick. Hey guys, these stories. There was an album launch I did. It was an album launch for this album that just came out called Nomtandazo.
I was there.
And you were there. Ma'am, I was so sick.
I remember.
I was so sick.
But we didn't know. You told us a little bit that you were sick.
Ma'am, this is where I really respected the idea of preparation. Like, guys, talent is beautiful. Talent is God-given. It's your people, yabona, it's all those you walk with, if you so choose to see and believe in that. But preparation is like the thing that you do where you have to present yourself to people and you feel like there's no voice and you don't know how it's going to happen. But the song needs to be sung, and my songs, it might not be obvious to someone else, maybe to singers, maybe. This is a very subjective knowledge, but they're technically difficult for me to sing, my songs.
Yes, Mariah Carey.
I'm not sure about Mariah Carey. That's another level.
No, but you
much
write
respect to the
challenging
queen,
songs.
Amandala, But like, what I mean is that the way in which I need to move through my voice when I sing songs, it's like chest voice, ngicela ningizwe, mixed voice, high voice, like head voice. Like the way in which I need to maneuver songs is so fascinating. So I've learned that preparation, like, goes the extra mile in the times where, because guys, a voice is so temperamental. It's like a clarinet, actually. Also very temperamental, like, instrument. Like, it can decide, like, no, not today.
Not for you today.
I see you, but I'm the queen. Yes, it's your name, it's your poster, but I'm the girl. I'm the girl today. So having to, like, kind of navigate even performance when you don't feel like your best self or in tip-top shape. We were even doing Miss SA recently. All the cardinal sins were there. And what are the cardinal sins to me? There was aircon in my holding room. I had to be there the whole day. Guys, aircon is like the enemy. It's like my nemesis. That girlie was there. And then for the actual performance and the sound checks and the run-throughs, there was a fog machine also. She's not my girl. My voice does not agree to it. So like working through all these things and mentally kind of having to be there it's so interesting. But again, it's like that discomfort that kills the ego, that it compels me to operate from a different space than, I'm the singing girl. I can do these things, right? To like, okay, this is the story I need to tell in this song. This is the emotion I need to have behind it, and having that be the focus, So it's like very fascinating. But I also get sad when people don't like what I do. That's also another relationship I have to my voice, because it's the only one I have, the one I've worked hard on. And I'm a recovering people pleaser. So, there's like that thing, having to manage that. But yeah, I think, look, I think ultimately I mean well.
I think that
And that's all I can take from my relationship between voice, performance, and this whole thing. I
Yeah.
mean, well.
I mean, in response to that, the voice is a muscle. So you're always working this muscle. And you would hope that the muscle memory will save you sometimes. But I want to come back to the thing you said about struggling when people don't like what you do. I was reading a beautiful review from Sunday Times from 2018. Sonwabo Nkosana wrote it. And it opens so beautifully because Sonwabo opens by saying that they were reading a review of Miles Davis by a writer, and this writer wrote this review with such reverence for this album that they felt that the writer had nothing left when they left the page. And then Sonwabo takes, I think, 34 Rand to walk down the street and buy this album because this writer's convinced them that they can't live without this album. And they use this as an intro to describe Yellow and to talk about how they feel about Yellow and how necessary it is for you to go and get. With critique within this review, so not without critique, but I felt it was so generous as a review because this person was saying, okay, these two things are things that I think would be improved on the record, but you cannot live your life without this album, and I'm going to tell you the 20 reasons why. And I think as someone who used to sometimes works as an arts writer and editor, I used to always say to people that artists take years to bring us a project. Don't listen to it once, don't listen to it twice. Live with it a bit, and then you can critique it. I'm not saying don't critique, but I'm saying honor the gift of the thing that you've been given. Because you've been given, I think you spoke about Nomtandazo saying, it took everything of you to make it.
Yes.
And I think that's a challenging thing. You've taken everything to create something, and then you put it out into the world, and then people have an opinion, instantly. Having listened to something once, and you speak about being a recovering people pleaser, in the joke of it, but how do you fortify yourself and your own relationship to your work? And what do you want from critique?
I was telling Sis Danny just before we started this conversation that I have better words. I have a bit of a challenge listening back to my own music because I'm so self-critical about it. And I'm sure in your vocations, you can in some way relate to that, if you are. I mean, if you're not, that's great. Teach me. I want to learn your ways, But I'm very, very self-critical, And it's to the point where it's not a prize, like it's not something to romanticize. It's unforgiving. It's relentless. It's very unkind. In many ways, all the negative critique that I've received, it can't beat the critique I've given myself. That's the honest truth. But the trouble I have with critique sometimes is that I feel like you're confirming what I think of myself, of the unworthiness and the unqualifiedness of myself, right? That's the first part. I am also, as much as a person who creates, I'm also a person who takes in what people are creating, whether it's on the screen, whether it's at a sound bath, whether it's here, taking in other conversations that might be had in the future through this avenue. Like, I also have thoughts about things. And there's things that really resonate with me. Like, today really resonated with me. But there's sometimes things that won't. There's stories that might not speak to me. But for me, knowing the sensitivity and the depths and the life and the everything that comes with creating things, it's very challenging to just give a negative critique. Firstly, that hasn't been asked for, right? Let's start there. But also giving a critique that doesn't build, and that the person who's sharing has not made me qualified to give. I'm not saying audiences shouldn't have thoughts, because art is there to create a reaction. Sometimes it will challenge you, sometimes it will anchor you, sometimes you'll be like, oh no, she's doing too much. Someone was literally saying on Twitter, hey, this didn't hurt my feelings, this was funny. She's like, I love it when Zoe sings and doesn't move around. Like, there's no need for the songs you sing, baby. There's no need to kenza kangaka. I was cackling, okay? But first and foremost, like, twerking to me is holy, okay? It's my love language to my audience. They get it. It's enough. But that was hilarious. So, like, you know, yeah, I feel like having opinions that are not desirable to the creators, perfectly normal. It's fine. We all walk through life, and there's things that speak to us and things that don't. But I like to, if you want to know what I think, honestly, then you can ask me. I'll tell you. And also, I'm hoping that in you asking me as Zoe, you are asking me from a place of being qualified through understanding what it takes to build something, what it takes to move through the spaces, the journey that comes with, so that in me giving the positive, the constructive, and the things to work on, the weaknesses and strengths, it's coming from a loving place that is respecting what this all comes from, but that is also willing to be like, oh, but this. But you see, people don't this. People do the most. And I don't like the most. Not even for myself. I don't like it for other people. I don't like it when people are just mean to other people. And we live in a social media space that's kind of made this, we've made it normal. But try me in real life. Try me in real life. You know, but like I just think, ultimately, Danny, I just think being human is such a fragile thing for all of us.
Yeah.
And we're all trying to navigate this thing, and it's so beautiful, and it's so stressful, and it's so weird, and it's so much to carry, and yet so light, and it affords us so many beautiful things, that if we're going to relate to each other on a human level, let it be from that space of knowing that, homie, I get it. Like, I get this thing. Let's not normalize just being mean for mean's sake, even in articulating things you don't agree with, or things you don't understand, or things you're trying to figure out. Like, let's try a softer landings with each other and normalize that. Because we even use it for entertainment value, you know. That, and South Africa, ne? We'll bandwagon on negativity, my baby. In the same way that we'll do the same for positivity. I've seen both. But, like, let's bandwagon in nice things, in a nice way, you know. So I respect critique. I think it's important. I think it refines, it sharpens. But I think it needs to come from a place that's anchored in that being the end goal. Yeah. And not just to bulldoze someone's spirit, creative life, just for funs and giggles. That I don't agree with.
Yeah, and I think it's also just with that idea of what it takes to make. And I think, you know, even for me thinking about something, you know, whether you're making an exhibition, whether you're making a project, whatever it is that you make, I've been thinking about how do you fortify your relationship to what you're making, so that when other people come in with a comment or a relation to it, that you can engage it from a place of externality, which is to say, okay, that is something that I'm receiving, but it's not what the thing is, which I think is the big challenge amidst it all, is to fortify your own relationship with the thing, which is not to say you like be resilient or like it's gonna be perfect, but to be like, how do you relate to what you're making from a place of love?
You know what King Ta said to me once?
Yeah.
She said, don't listen too much to the negative things. Yeah. But don't listen so much to the positive things either. Because sometimes there is a thing of like, wow, you're amazing, presidential gowns, beautiful gowns, da, da, da. There is an unbalance in just receiving that end of things as well.
Like a positive.
Yes. Yeah. Because what does that challenge in you in wanting to work and refine yourself? So I respected what she was saying. Like, don't listen too much to the negative in your vocation, in your workplace, but don't listen too much to the positivity. Just what is the task? What is the end game? thank you so much for anchoring me if you're doing the process. If you don't, you snooze, you lose, jokes. But like, it's fine. It's actually fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to take us in a different direction, which is I started wondering what you are listening to at the moment, which I think like we don't ask artists enough, like, who are you listening to? Like, what's on rotation? What song can you not stop playing?
There's this awesome human being I work alongside. Miley just gave me the most amazing like house playlist. Literally all the joints. Deeper, deeper, deeper. What's that? Like, so like I've been in that space of taking that playlist in and repeating that. I've been listening to a lot of Thames, King Tam. I take time when listening to work, so I'm actually okay with people when they tell me about my work. Like, it takes time. I haven't finished it. I love you, girl. So I'm that kind of listener as well. Like, it takes time. But
I played the same 5 albums on rotation.
Which ones? Which ones do you play?
Cleo Soul Mother, Leanne Lahavas, Yeba, Dawn, SZA, SOS, and now Billie Eilish.
Oh, that's,
the new one. But the same 5 albums. If you come into my car, if you come into my house, you'll hear the same thing. And I think that thing of slowing down the relationship to music it's a lovely thing to take. But now I'm going to open it up to all of you. 2 burning questions in the room. I have 1. Is there another? I have 2. Okay, those are our questions. Jean-Marie, can we get a mic to the back?
Hi. My question is for Zoe. Love you. What would you say are your top 3 go-tos for balancing or identifying whether or not you're serving self, your career, or your purpose?
Again? Repeat that one again.
What would you say are your top 3 go-tos for balancing or identifying whether or not you're serving self, your career, or your purpose?
And I'm having to choose between these 3 things, or are they existing as one?
I think they're existing as one.
Does it scare me?
Okay.
Does it paralyze me with fear? Because my purpose, I don't know if it's the same with you guys, but the places my purpose takes me to, very frightening and in a paralyzing way. In a way where it's like, I won't be able to do this by my own strength type thing. So I know for sure, and we had this chat, I know for sure I'm in the right place when it's completely paralyzingly, like it makes me filled with fear. That's how I know. First purpose thing. Second purpose thing. I'm trying to be present in answering these questions, right? Because I was sharing with someone how when you ask the same questions, by the way, this is not that, but like it's easy to go to these answers. So I'm really trying to be present with this. Purpose with fear and having to conquer that. Second thing is being able to articulate honestly. Like honestly, which is also a very scary place to be. It's a very vulnerable place to be because I know that what I do requires vulnerability from me and so much of it. And sometimes it feels unfair, but it does, you know. So being able to conquer the fear and having to be honest and vulnerable. And I feel like people respond to that, like regardless of like the walk you walk and what you share with people, the ones that respond to you, more than the voice and the beautiful gowns and the things, it's like the honesty that causes them to see themselves in you in that moment, you know? So it's that. The third one is the feeling of knowing that I'm telling rooted stories, inspired stories, labored stories, and stories that are about the way that I see life, the beauty around me, and how I tell the story of the human experience and how I reflect the time. So that's how I know for sure that, okay, this is anchored to me. Yeah.
Great question, great answer.
Beautiful question.
We need the mic over here. Last question.
I think I saw her hand as well.
Unfortunately, it was over here, I think, was the question.
I'm trying to figure out if you actually answered my question with her question. But my question was going to ask, do you ever find yourself tasseling with Badimu Bahao, your guides, when trying to portray what they're bringing forth through you? Because you mentioned that what you sing about, what you write about, is not necessarily your message. It comes from your people that you work with. Do you find yourself tasseling with them, being like, ooh, how do you guys expect me to tell the story? How do you expect me to bring forth this message? Or do you know that you have to, and you have to be in that vulnerable place to tell what they bring forth?
Such beautiful questions. I think they tussle with me more than I do with them. Because I'm the one that needs to be convinced that I'm worthy to share this, that I'm qualified to share it. Because again, these things are scary, these things are big when they come, and it's having to say, Mtanami, like you've got this. You may not think, and even the journey of getting to it and in finishing this task, you'll find that you have everything you need to do it, you know. So for me, I think it's definitely more of that. I feel like my people dance with me. I mean, I showed you the grasshopper pop in, always visitations, vibes, you know. There's a lot of love that I find my lineage comes to me with. And I think it's that love of knowing that I am a soft-hearted person, and that is the way that you need to best communicate. In recognizing my softness, I'm able to get into being anchored and getting into the ta-ta of who I am as well. But you need to recognize my softness and allow me into that. Then I'm able to then grow, not hardened, but like grow courageous, grow brave, grow to be self-assured. I need to grow and mold into this because I don't always feel like it's my default setting, you know. So they dance with me, and I'm having to be reminded by them that you are us, we are you, but you're also you, and you've got this. Like, you've got this. Yeah. Because sometimes we seek so much outside of ourselves for these things and these meanings, and like the task was given to you, as mammoth as it might seem, it's given to you because you're qualified. You're already qualified. You're already chosen in that. You're already seen in that. You will be the person to see it through. And in fact, your fears and all these things can be a powerful channeling into that space as well. Because it also needs that humility of like, hey, I'm not sure. Is not make sure, you know, to kind of operate from a space that's not ego, but the other one. The other space, but yeah.
Well, everybody, join me in giving a round of applause to Zoe. It's been wonderful to sit with you and talk about where you are at right now. I'm going to invite you all into the next space where I'll introduce our performer for today.